Hi, everyone. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Business of Color Analysis podcast. Today, we're going to talk about what it's really like a day in the life of a professional color analyst. So, I want to pull back the curtain a bit and walk you through what a real day in the life of a professional color analyst actually looks like. Not the Instagram version, not the highlight reel, not just the draping and the wow moments, but the full picture. Because one of the biggest misconceptions about color analysis is that the job is just sitting in beautiful light in the studio, holding fabrics and telling people their season. And while that is absolutely part of the work, it's only a fraction of it. Being a professional color analyst is part technical expert, part educator, part business owner, part marketer, part client experience manager. So today I'm going to walk you through a typical day from start to finish, explain what happens behind the scenes, and talk honestly about where the time actually goes. This episode is especially helpful if you're considering becoming a color analyst, if you're newly certified, or feeling surprised by how much work exists outside of the session itself. So, part 1. The day starts long before the client arrives. Most people assume my workday starts when a client walks into the studio. In reality, it starts hours before that. Before a single drape comes out, I'm usually reviewing my schedule, checking client intake forms for that day. If there are any virtual clients that I need to work on, I will be onboarding them through a Zoom, or perhaps I might be reviewing their photos that they've turned in, or I might be doing a season reveal presentation to them via Zoom. Another thing I might be working on is reviewing my emails and answering any inquiries for group color analysis or opportunities that have been sent to me. I also might be working on my accounting or taxes that day. So the next thing that I might be working on is preparing the studio for the analysis, which could mean steaming the drapes, folding the drapes, making sure the chair, mirror, lighting, etc. is ready, cleaning the studio, and of course, since my studio is in my home, we have to make sure that the downstairs is picked up and clean. On that day, I also do full hair and makeup. I usually put on a cute dress and heels. I like to look the part and show that I'm knowledgeable about beauty and fashion. I don't think you necessarily need to look any type of way to be a color analyst, but I do think that it helps if you show that you take care of yourself and put energy and time into your appearance, because ultimately that is what your clients are there to do. They're there to improve their appearance, and they want to learn from somebody who seems like they have it figured out themselves. As a side note, I do want to add that since I already have my hair and makeup done, I like to film on these client days, and I will usually set up a time before or after client session to batch reels and film content. So if I'm working virtually, there's also prep involved, which I mentioned earlier. I'm reviewing photos and videos that have been submitted. I might be making notes on potential undertone indicators or contrast levels to test live if they've submitted a photo also beforehand, before the actual color analysis. So let's see. So I think that this prep matters more than people realize. Clients don't want to feel like a transaction. They want to feel seen and remembered. So consistency and planning my day in advance and having a checklist is what allows the analysis itself to be accurate. So already before the client arrives, there's a lot of quiet, invisible work that has already happened. So part 2 is the color analysis session itself. The session is the most visible part of my job, but it's also the most mentally demanding. So during a session, I'm doing several things at once. I'm observing subtle changes in the skin, comparing colors systematically. I'm tracking their undertone, depth, contrast, and chroma. I'm watching also how the client reacts emotionally and visually, because that's important for me if I need to talk them through anything. And I'm also explaining what I see in real time in a way that makes sense to them. Now, I will say that some analysts don't do this. They just like to wait and then tell the client they don't want to be discussing it. And that's what I typically do at the very beginning. I explain to them at the very start that I am going to be going through all sorts of drapes and colors, and that when I know what they are, like usually for my system, the first step is the undertone. So when I know what undertone they are, then I go through and I show them exactly what I am seeing. So I review their best colors, and then I'll add to that actually that after I tell them their undertone, then I'm a little bit more chatty when it comes to looking at their season. So for example, if they are warm, I'll be a little bit more chatty about what I'm seeing during spring and autumn. For example, and maybe during their subseason too, but I'm usually very quiet when I'm doing their undertone because I want to make sure I get that 100%, and I'm sure before I say anything to them, because the undertone, in my opinion, is probably the most important part of the entire session. So after I have done all of those things and told them their season, I will review their best colors for their clothing. I will swatch their best makeup colors from the makeup that I have in my studio, and I will spend time showing them the digital guides that they'll receive for their season. So every face is different. Every session requires presence and focus. So keep in mind that during the session, clients are often processing a lot more than you probably realize. Sometimes it's surprise, other times it's relief, it could be validation, and sometimes confusion. So part of the role is to guide them through that without overwhelming them. So I'm constantly adjusting throughout the session. So I might be slowing down if someone needs more explanation, or I might be speeding up if the differences are obvious and they see it. I also will clarify misconceptions about warm versus cool or hair and makeup rules for them. So by the end of a 90-minute session, clients usually feel energized, and I often feel mentally tired. That's not a bad thing. It's just the reality of focused visual work. So part 3 is what happens after the client leaves. Here's the part almost no one talks about. After every session, I document everything internally. I like to log the client's confirmed season, key observations about their coloring, notes on what worked especially well or needed explanation, if there are any edge cases or nuances, like if they might flow and I was in between 2 subseasons, and any personal notes they shared that might be helpful later, such as where they work, where they live, how old their children are, those sorts of nice details. So this step is not client-facing, but I believe that it is critical, and it allows me to stay consistent if they return. I can answer follow-up questions more confidently. I can avoid redoing work, and it makes the client feel remembered if we ever speak again. I will also send the follow-up email with resources and next steps. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I do a 30-minute Zoom follow-up call after their in-person or virtual session so that they can ask any clarifying questions or get help with anything they're struggling with. After that, I send the follow-up email with resources and next step. And I believe that this is where the professionalism shows. And a great session paired with a sloppy follow-up, I think, breaks trust. And a clear, thoughtful follow-up reinforces expertise. So part 4, the business side no one expects. Let's talk about the part of the job that surprises most people. A significant portion of my day is spent on things that have nothing to do with draping. And I would say marketing is the biggest one. So that includes creating content, filming and editing videos, writing captions, responding to comments and DMs. I spend a lot of time responding to questions and DMs. I feel that this, of course, is my duty and service to help everyone that is asking questions, but also it's also beneficial for me and improves the algorithm. So I also answer inquiries, I manage booking links and systems, and then there's also the operational side. So I might be working on scheduling, invoicing, updating systems, refining client flows, improving communication templates. I might be updating my website. So, and if you're teaching, creating guides, or supporting other analysts like I am, that also adds another layer entirely. So this is why being good at color alone is not enough to sustain a business. You have to build something that runs smoothly around the skill itself. So part 5 is the mental and emotional side of the work. One thing I don't think we talk about enough is the emotional responsibility of this work. So clients often come in with years of frustration, confusion about their appearance, mistrust potentially from past color analysis experiences. And color analysis can be incredibly validating, but it can also stir up a lot of emotions. So I like to tell clients this story because I was originally typed as a light summer, and I was thrilled. I absolutely love the light summer palette, and I identified with those beautiful cool tones. They're very soft and muted and elegant. And when I found out that I was a true spring, I will tell you that I was devastated. I could see it. I could tell that I was a true spring and that this new analysis was correct, because when I did really dive into those summer colors, they just didn't feel or look right on me. Even when I was told I was a summer, I could never wear silver jewelry. And also I would put on certain makeup, like lipsticks and lip liners, blushes, and they just didn't look right. Sometimes they would turn gray on me. And now I look back and realize that it was all washing me out. I thought it was brightening me up, but nope. It was washing me out. And even though I could see it and I knew that I was a spring, I did not want to be a spring. I did not want to wear warm colors. I did not want to wear coral or peach makeup. I wanted to wear those soft, dusty rose, those beautiful mauves and pretty pinks that are in the summer palette. And I can remember the first time I shopped for makeup, and this also happened the first few times that I went shopping for clothing. I got a headache each time. My stomach hurt, and I realized that it was very subconscious. I was there purposely shopping for my palette, and I knew those colors would look best on me. However, I didn't really want to wear them, and I just found it to be so interesting because I had never realized that I had an identity connection to those colors. So I personally think that it's helpful that I went through that experience because I can empathize with my clients now if they receive an analysis, if they receive a season that they are not thrilled about, and this can happen. So it's important that we hold space for them. It requires empathy, patience, and boundaries. So it's rewarding, but of course it's also work. And that's why pacing matters. I've talked about in the last episode a bit about how I like to only take 2 in-person clients at most per day. And I try to not take more than 6 to 8 or so clients per week. That does not include group color analyses. That I'm just talking about individual in-person sessions that take anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours, because those are a bit more exhausting in a different way than groups. So it's the reason why systems matter, and that's why burnout happens when people underestimate what this job actually requires. I think of doing color analysis sessions almost as putting on a show. You are the entertainment, and they are paying for this experience, and you need to show up 100% for every client, regardless of whether it is an in-person session or a virtual session. You really only have this one main touch point with them, and it needs to make them feel really special and really wonderful. They should feel very taken care of, and that you're giving them your full attention. So when people ask me what a day in the life of a professional color analyst looks like, the honest answer is that it's layered, it's technical, and it's also creative, it's client facing, but there's also a lot behind the scenes. It's deeply rewarding, and it can also be very mentally and physically demanding. And most of it happens outside the draping that you see online. So if you're in this field and feeling surprised by how much there is to manage, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just seeing the full picture and the full scope. I can't wait to cover more of all of this on future episodes. And thank you so much for listening to the Business of Color Analysis podcast.